Hey, thank you for all that's still here, and I know that everybody has dinner plans and is ready to get out of here for the day, but I'm going to make this as very quick as possible, but it's a lot of good quality information. What you've heard here today is a lot of what happens during the claim and after the claim and how to handle the claim. But the information that I'm about to share with you is very important from a mitigation side. So I know we have one mitigation guy here. Do you do mitigation as a contractor? Okay. Is there any other people that do mitigation? Okay, so I'm going to be talking to more of a public adjuster side, so if you could take this information and apply that to your business on what you need to do as a mitigation company, I think it'll help you tremendously. So I'm going to be talking kind of in two different sides of this. So my presentation is build a file that wins in trial. And the topic of this presentation is very simple. It is an in-depth look into how missed documents for mitigation can cause major delays and what files are needed from a mitigation company. So I've been in the mitigation industry pretty much my entire adult life, and then I transitioned over to the consulting side to help public adjusters and help attorneys and their policyholders to basically make sure that they are made whole. So we're about to look inside of a lot of my work product. I'm pretty much like Todd Stern. The way I teach is showing you what I do. And that's the only way I know how to teach. So with that being said, let's get into it. It's a lot of good information. So if you take anything out of this, I'm an open book. You can contact me anytime. I help a lot of people across the country, and I'd be more than happy to help any of you here today. So the time frame and the consequences of missing documentation. This is about to go in depth of when you get the claim and when the mitigation starts, and then the communication and where it breaks down by missing documentation. So we have a claim. Typically, the mitigation company is there first. You might not get the claim before the mitigation company gets there. But 9 times out of 10, the mitigation company is there. They're going to start their documentation and probably perform mitigation. They're going to get started to prevent further damage. That's their job. So we start with the mitigation documentation. The mitigation company provides all the documentation to you or the attorney, whatever company is representing the policyholder, and the public adjuster receives that. Now, how many of you in here actually look through the mitigation documents that is received? Okay, that's great. More than I thought. So you receive all the documents from the mitigation company, assuming that everything is correct. The public adjuster or the attorney then provides all the documentation to the field adjuster, the desk adjuster, or the opposing counsel. This is probably the one field adjuster or desk adjuster that has been assigned to this claim. So therefore, that's pretty much the only one that you know at this point. It's a pretty easy process, right? You would think that this was exactly what it needs to be. Everything is good. You done told your policyholder. All the documentation's been turned in. We're just waiting on review from the field adjuster and the desk adjuster and opposing counsel. It's a pretty easy process. Wrong. That is not an easy process when files are missing a document. What happens when files are missing a document, it causes huge delays. So now, the field adjuster and the desk adjuster or the opposing counsel has a documentation from the public adjuster or the attorney. That's great. But the field adjuster or their representation has discovered a missing document within a file. An email is sent, therefore pushing this file in the attention to the bottom of the list. If anybody works hurricanes or natural disasters, we know that when something is found, it takes a long time because that public adjuster or the attorney working for the policyholder probably has hundreds of claims on their desk. So does that field adjuster. So does that desk adjuster. So therefore, when something's missing, it's not just an easy response to get back to that public adjuster. So therefore, the public adjuster is like, damn, I'm missing something because my mitigation company did not provide that documentation. What happens? The The public adjuster or the attorney must now contact the mitigation company to request the documents, therefore pulling the attention and the concentration from their files. Mind you, that mitigation company's probably done performed 20 to 30 mitigations and probably has a mile-long list of people that's waiting on them to perform another mitigation. So now we're trying to get the attention of a mitigation company from a past claim to produce a document. But what if that mitigation company doesn't even have those documents? What if they didn't document it properly? What if they have the documents but it's inaccurate? Who is now on the defense? I don't like being on the defense. I always want to be on the offense for my clients. I never, ever want to be on the defense. But now we're on the defense because we have missed documents when we turn in an incomplete file. So in that picture right there, we're burning time. We are burning time, and time equals money. And the policyholder is now probably getting pretty aggravated because they don't have no update. They still don't have approval. You probably don't have an accurate number. The mitigation company's probably blowing up your phone wanting to know where his money's at. Why can't he get paid? Why can't he get approval? Well, now the process has started all over again. We're on step number 3. 3 times that we're trying to get this information to the adjuster. So now we start back over at the mitigation company. The mitigation company provides the missing documents to the public adjuster or the attorney. Mind you that they've probably done 50 jobs by this time. That public adjuster probably has a backlog of 100 claims since then. This is weeks, probably months, that is taken to get these emails back and forth from each other and going back and forth trying to that. Therefore, the public adjuster or the attorney then provides the missing documents to the field adjuster again. But what happens if that field adjuster's unswitched? What if you're on your 3rd or 4th field adjuster and that file has went through multiple hands? So therefore, they might have found more things that they don't like with their file. The field adjuster, desk adjuster, then or the opposing counsel now reopens the file for the review, his final review, now that he thinks that he has all the documents. This claim has been delayed for weeks because of missing documents. Who suffers when that happens? The policyholder suffers. The policyholder suffers by incompetent or lack of a neglect or knowledge of a mitigation company that don't know what they're doing, or might not care that they know what they're doing. A contractor that might not be have qualifications to do mitigation or document it properly. The policyholder suffers. Now, with the PAs being in here, the way that you suffer, you're probably asking, is that this is weeks and months of missing documents. What happens? You have 0 checks coming in. Therefore, you have 0 percentages being collected off that check. The mitigation company hasn't been paid. They've already paid for dumpsters. They've already paid for labor. They've already paid for their dehumidifiers if they're renting them or whatever the case may be. All this is so important to make sure that your file is complete before sending it. So now we're about to look into my work product, and I'm going to share with you and what mitigation companies and the bullet points that you have to look for to make sure that your file gets turned in properly. Now, this isn't all of it, but it's the most important ones that probably in your own files that you're working right now have been asked to produce. So you're probably asked, Chris, what are the most important documents needed from a mitigation contractor? There's 4 of them. 1, an indoor environmental analysis or a protocol or a report. Most of the time, a third-party consultant will issue analysis or a protocol, but every mitigation company should issue at least a report, no matter what. So, number 2, an operational progress report. How many of you do y'all know what an operational progress report is or ever received one from a mitigation company? Not too many, but it's very important, and you're going to see why. Number 3, a PRV, or a certificate of completion. How many of you guys have ever seen a certificate of completion from a mitigation company to let your policyholders know that their house is safe to rebuild? None. But that also tells you that whenever they issue a certificate of completion, that their job is complete, it's safe, and they have backed up all of their work that they're billing for. Number 4, an accurate and truthful invoice. This is my favorite. And we're going to get into this of some of the bullshit that goes on with mitigation companies and inaccurate invoices that give us all a black eye, that causes massive delays, and actually gives the carrier ammunition to really, really pin us down and not pay the bills. So, number 1, the environmental analysis protocol or the report. This is going to be a look inside. I always start with a narrative. We want to get started right off the bat with facts. We're not sugarcoating it. We're not doing anything else. We're getting straight to the facts. I was there on the 15th day. Basically, I give them requirements on what they need to look for from a mitigation company and back up all of the WRTs, the references, the licensing, all of that. And then I get straight into an overall view assessment. I want to show them exactly what I've seen. I want to show them a brief description of what's going on. Then I get into my third-party experts that I hire, which is Hayes Microbial for all my lab results. I want to make that very clear that this is not just my work product, that I've brought in other experts to build my file that I'm going to issue to my policyholder, therefore their representation as well. And then I'm going to give them some literature. This is a fire job, so you have a lot of soot and ash definitions in this. And then we follow up immediately with our notes. So our technicians that are out in the field, we're going to add those notes to this. We want to grab the attention of that adjuster immediately. This is what we saw. This is what you're up against. This is the facts, and we're not sugarcoating anything. This is what it is. This is your loss. Then we go into weather data. I'm not a meteorologist, but I quote a lot of weather data, but you got to make sure that you put all the links in, because if not, then they're gonna assume that you're trying to be a meteorologist, and I'm not. So on hurricane natural disasters, we always put in the photographs of the hurricane. We want to put in the link of where we found the data at. We want to make sure that they know the wind speed. We want to make sure that they know how long that wind speed lasted. And also, too, to make sure that they understand what categorization that the National Weather Service has issued this hurricane to be. That's very helpful, because I don't want nobody to come back to me and say, well, you know, how bad was that wind, or what was the peril, or we're gonna nip that right now. We're gonna let them know that this is a hurricane claim, and here's the data. You can go do your own research. I'm providing it for you one way or another. Whether you skip over it or whether you look at it, that's on you. So every fire, mold, or a water claim, I want to have the weather data of the day that I assess the property. What that does is, when you have your photographs and you have all of your mold samples and your air quality and you have our RH levels, I want to show that my RH levels and the temperature of my job that I had matches the weather data that they had for that day. I don't want no one to question whether my RH levels was high, whether they was low, and then I have to prove that with photographs. Here's the data. This is what the day looked like whenever I got there. So these two are very important. I will always do the day that I inspected the loss, plus more weather data if it's a natural disaster. Extreme weather conditions. We had that. This is a project in Georgia from the Christmas freeze. We want to show that weather data for all of the busted water pipes. We want to show that it was below freezing for X amount of days. We want to pull the power company's data and outage uses for showing that area was out of power for multiple days at a time. So all of this data that we're given is leading up to the evidence that we're about to present. So therefore, there was a loss there was a weather event on this day. Now we're going to get into the evidence to show what was caused by this weather event. So we had a water loss, busted water pipe. We want to moisture map. I think Todd hit on that earlier, that if you guys are roofers and you don't have moisture mappings, find someone that does. Moisture mapping is very, very important. So we use a lot of moisture mapping for our clients. We go as far as using our Matterport. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's the percentages on the Matterport itself. So we Matterport every single job that we do. But we also use that Matterport for multiple tasks. So when we're walking through this project as a Matterport, we tag all of the areas that we moisture map. So let's just say our northeast wall was at 75%. That adjuster can now pull up our Matterport and go to that exact wall and click on it, and he's going to see a photo of our moisture reader, and he's going to also see a photo of the moisture percentage on that one wall. So when he takes his virtual tour, he's not only seeing all the photography of the damage, but he's also seeing all of the bullet points and the moisture maps that's going to go back to our moisture mapping floor plan that we've marked up, of where we do all of our air samples and our tape lifts and the ceiling moisture and the wall moisture and bulk samples. So we're laying out a pattern for him to show him the damage in this loss. Got some infrared photos down there. We got some thermals, and we got some moisture readings. But moisture mapping, if you do not have this in your file by your mitigation company, you are missing out, because they will ask for this. They will ask for your moisture map, and if your mitigation company doesn't provide something of this quality, they're going to question why the walls are coming out. Why? What's the proof? What's the damage? And we don't want to be on the defense with that. Scope of work. We always want to provide a scope of work. This is to defend on what we take out as mitigation guys, or if I'm writing a protocol of what they need to follow on the damage of my loss. So we always, if this is another fire loss, we marked all the walls that we thought that needed heavy cleaning. We marked the walls that the ceilings needed to come out. We marked the walls of full wall removal. We've marked the walls of carpet. And then also too, our notes back up that scope of work. So these are notes that we take out in the field, and they're gonna match the type notes, but I wanna show that adjuster, these are the notes that we took out in the field. We didn't go back and type them. These are our original, and they match the scope of work. This is all setting up, this is all before mitigation even starts. This is all setting up the file of us to perform the actual work itself. The environmental sample locations. So a lot of experts and guys that talked up here, especially Galen, was talking about the loss of use and business interruption. But what he didn't have in his presentation was what causes the business interruption to kick in. What causes the ALE to kick in. This is what can back up that of why your client cannot go into that sanctuary. This is a church that we did. We labeled all of the locations that we did an air quality sample at. I don't want anyone or any adjuster to ever question of why I did not do one area. Because what happens is we have an exterior door, and I didn't take a sample in the, let's just say, the northeast wing of that facility. They're gonna say, well, we could just contain that area off, and you're still livable, or it's still usable, and they can still use that. No, sir, I basically took air quality of the whole entire unit, and therefore, all of it came back with some type of hazard. So therefore, this shows that my client is out of this church. My client and his congregation cannot go to this church. So therefore, business interruption kicks in. He's losing revenue. He's losing his ability to use his building. And here's the scientific proof that he's losing it. Therefore, an attorney, this is a dream for an attorney working a business interruption case, because here's the scientific data he needs to back up his claim. Therefore, we have all our notes again of where we took our samples. The bottom right corner is our asbestos samples that we take. We take all of the locations is pinned down and located and documented very, very heavily. So if your mitigation company doesn't perform this, or an industrial hygienist for the mitigation company, I would highly recommend that you get them on the schedule to start doing this, because this is game changer. So the environmental sample results, always a third party. I take the samples, but I do not read my own lab results. I want someone else to have those results. I want them to show me what's bad. I do not want to present any lab results from myself. I'll take them, I'll send them in, use my expertise on where to take them, but I want that lab result to be sent from a microbial consulting company. The indoor air quality, that's probably one of your biggest. This is a sample result of indoor air quality. This is going to show that home, which is a residential home, that home is not safe for them to be in. Therefore, your ALE will kick in. It shows exactly what rooms failed, and therefore where the mitigation company needs to concentrate on. This is not indicating on what walls need to come out. That's not indicating on the peril. It's not indicating on any of that. It's just showing that this air quality is not safe to breathe. My client cannot be in this home whenever we fail air quality. Fire carcinogens, I do a lot of fires. That's really, really what I specialize in. So we want to show that adjuster, when we're building this narrative, going back to that first original page, whenever I am telling him that there's carcinogens and acetinoforms and all this soot and stuff on the product, now I have the evidence to show from a third-party lab just all the percentages and the raw count of all those carcinogens on the walls, on the contents, on the floors, in the carpet, in the ductwork system. I'm going to have this data to back up what I'm writing for my scope. It's very, very important. Now remember, this is all before mitigation's even started. This is on your initial inspection that you're gathering all this data to write this report. Asbestos. If you do not get an asbestos testing from anybody, it's so important. I don't care what year it is. I don't care that whole 1973 and down. That's besides the point. I get an asbestos test on every single project that I do. Every single one. It's so important, not only for your workers, not only for your health, not only for your policyholders, but it's also for the price of what it goes into the abatement. The last thing you want to do is not get asbestos testing done, get all the way through the claim, get all of this stuff approved from a normal mitigation invoice, and then find out that you're getting hit with an asbestos abatement charge that's out the roof. Then you have to go back and then find out there's an exclusion. It just causes a whole bunch of problems. Get your asbestos test done right away. So going into that, your high quality photographs. This is very, very important. I can't stress enough about, you got a question?
Chris, I was going to say we need to get together and talk about the silica on
Sure, absolutely, no doubt. Let's do it. Absolutely. I'd love to put that in my reports too. So yeah, high quality photographs. I think there was a couple speakers that was talking about the photographs that they've been receiving here lately has been less than average. But I always start my inspections with the exterior photos. I want to show the exit of the smoke and soot. I want to show that I'm at the right house. I want to show all the exterior photos first. Then I start with the overview photos. I want to show the rooms that I'm walking into, and this is all in the same pattern. I want to make sure that if I take an overview photo of the bathrooms, then I start my documentation in that bathroom. I want to make sure it follows my Matterport, and I want to make sure that I show that narrative again to make sure that we're following the path to make it as easy as possible for the adjusters, your policyholders, and their representation to follow the photos. If you jump from the master bedroom to the kitchen, and they're not going to know where these photos were even taken. So make sure that you take an overall view, a photo of the room, then do all your documentation in that room, and then follow into the next room of taking your photos. Your detailed photos, that is getting up close, that's getting dirty, that's getting your moisture readings, that's getting all the damage, that's getting your contents, that's getting all of your detailed photos that is going to warrant your scope of work and your claim. Detailed photos are very, very important. We can go from anywhere from 300 to 1,000 photos per, yes sir. No, it's okay. Yep. So That app is called Solicator, and it's been very, very helpful for us because what it does, and if I would have shrunk those photos down a little bit, it would have showed you the northeast. It has an indication of what walls it is. So right above the black area and the coordinates, it'll say northeast, west, south. It has that in it. But it also, if you kind of look, you'll see that we normally put the peril at the bottom left corner, and then on the right side we put the policyholder's information, and it also automatically date and timestamps it as well. So this app is very, very helpful to us. Solicator, S-O-L. Cator, C-A-T-O-R. One other good thing about, and I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, but one good thing about them is that you can put them into a large zip file and send them all at one time. So we have this on every single photograph, on every single phone and iPad that we have. This app is very helpful to us. Yeah, no doubt. So detailed photos are very, very important in our line of work. So the original report is very helpful. That sets a narrative of what we have to do. But this report is probably one of the most important documents out of the four. The certificate is pretty important because it says the health. But this one really warrants why we needed to do the scope of work. And a lot of mitigation companies fail when it comes to an operational progress report, and you'll see why. So we always start, obviously, with the first 4 or 5 pages of the overviews of the operational progress report of what we saw on the job, what we saw the mitigation company doing, what the weather was that day that they started it. Then we get into our original matter report and scope. So whenever I expect a mitigation company to give me an operational progress report from my client, I want them to have the original matter report, the link, and I want to have the original scope of work. I want to know what they started with. I want to know when they first arrived onto that job, this is what they expected to do. Then we move into when they actually started. I want another scope of work with the supplemental scope. I want to see what they needed to do to add to that scope. So I want 2 scopes of work. I want the original one I wrote, and I want them to provide me one that they found mold inside the wall, or they found some additional damage that I couldn't see. Once they remove all the insulation in the attic, I want to see if that drywall, that ceiling needed to be dropped. Or when they remove that baseboard, or when they remove that carpet that I couldn't see. I want to see if I need to add to my original scope. So I expect a supplemental scope from the mitigation company to warrant any additional items that I could not see. And that's huge because it's going to help your claim whenever you have to write a supplement. Here it is. My mitigation company did it for me. I'm not assuming it. This is the facts, and we're going to work on facts. I want to know where their containment layout is. I want to know where their dumpster placement is because I see a lot of mitigation companies saying, well, I had to go down this hallway to go to the dumpster, therefore we nicked and scratched this wall when we was bringing carpet out. Well, if your dumpster's on the other end of where you're telling me that you had to go down the hallway, then I know you're full of shit. Therefore, the client is your carrier is going to say the exact same thing because he knows it. So I want to know where their dumpster placement was, and I want to know where their containment was. I don't want any one of my clients to ever come back and say that a mitigation company cross-contaminated. That's huge. Huge on cross-contamination. I can tell that carrier, Mr. David, we put containment up in this living room area. Therefore, we know that we did not get any cross-contaminant into the master bedroom that didn't have any damage. You're not going to see anything wrote on the Xactimate for the master bedroom. But what we're seeing here, going at the end of my slide, you'll see where I'll do peer reviews. We're seeing a lot of areas that are not in the original scope, but the mitigation company needs to wipe the walls down, or they need some extra demolition in the master bedrooms on the other side of the house. Whenever it really shouldn't have been there if they would have contained it and not cross-contaminated it. Because then it's going to give the carriers a way out to know, put blame on somebody. It's not part of the loss. You did it. Therefore, I can't defend you on something that you neglected to do. So therefore, I want to know where their containment is to where I can defend them to a certain professional level. So this is super big, and if you do not have these types of photos in your operational progress report from mitigation companies, you can't expect them to be paid. So your interior damage photos, I want that mitigation company to take photos after they remove cabinets, but before they remove the drywall. I want them to show me that that subfloor is wet after they remove the flooring. Therefore, we can either get the subfloor paid or get more drying equipment to dry the wood subfloor. Those photographs during mitigation is so important. This backs up what we're charging for in our scopes. This is your proof of why you deserve to be paid, or your policyholder or your mitigation company. So we would have known that cabinet behind there had mold after this hurricane claim. But we knew that it had water damage up to a certain point. When we removed the baseboard, we saw mold. When we removed the cabinets, we saw even more mold. So therefore, that whole area snowballed that never would have been addressed if a proper investigation wouldn't have been done. Or we never would have got that covered and paid because that wasn't on my original scope because I didn't know it. Now we can add that to our supplemental scope because we have the proof to do it. Your general condition photos is probably one of the most things that get argued the most. For dumpsters, for bobcats, for tarping, all your general conditions, we want to make sure that we have at least a photograph of it. I ask all of my mitigation companies that I train and consult for, take a photo of every dumpster. Every dumpster has a number on it. You're probably going to get questioned on how many dumpsters you use. Just take a quick photo. Have your project manager take a photo. It might be 10, might be 12, but that's more detailed ammunition that we have to make sure that we can get you paid properly. So all of those general conditions are very, very important. Please, please, please tell your mitigation companies when you're requesting that information from them, make sure that they have all this document, because you're going to be asked, and you're going to ultimately have to make sure that your policyholder is made whole based off of someone else's job. And that's not a good feeling unless you're confident that they've done a good job. PPE photos. Have your crews take photographs while they're in their PPE. Make sure that they are compliant. And make sure that you get paid for it. You deserve to be paid for it. Take photographs of that. Show them proof that you wore it. And therefore, they're not going to argue with you because you have the proof. So your certificate of completion. This is a very, very big, important one that every single one of your clients should always get on a job. You have to have them give a certificate of completion. This is for resale value. This is for peace of mind. This is for making sure that their home is safe, making sure that the liability is not going to come back on you. Please, please make sure, especially if y'all working Hurricane Ian jobs, make sure that there's a third party doing testing after mitigation and before drywall goes up. Make sure that you're holding these mitigation companies accountable because there are a ton of them that are not doing it right. There's contractors doing mitigation. There's roofers doing mitigation. Everybody's a mitigation and water mit guy after a storm. Everybody, especially in Texas. So if you do not make sure that your policyholder has any of the documents that I had before, please make sure that they have these. So the first one is your passing air quality. So therefore, we've passed this test now. As you've seen on the first ones from the original report, it was all red and purple. Now it's nothing. That means that the mitigation company done a great job. They've got all the air spores cleaned up and all the mold is out. The second one is dry logs. You probably one of the most documents requested from your carrier's dry logs, which they should. They have the right to request dry logs. And unfortunately, a lot of mitigation companies don't even produce dry logs or can't produce them. And they need to be accurate because the days that we have on our dry logs need to match the days that they was actually on site. Therefore, that's going to warrant how many pieces of equipment that they used. Look at that. Look at those dry logs for your client. Look at those dry logs and make sure that he really did have 10 dehumidifiers if he's charging for 10 dehumidifiers. Like, that's super, super important. This is the documentation that I feel needs to be looked over to make sure it's accurate because I can promise you, I work both sides of the fence. If I come across your files and y'all do not, or your files do not have all of this, I'm going to hammer down on you because it's so important. It's neglect if you don't have this in your files. So your dry logs, that's going to basically let your policyholder know that the wooden structure is dry. They're not going to have any problems along the way of mold growing after the walls are put back up. But it's also going to make sure that your mitigation company gets paid properly because he dried it on so many days, whether that whole 3-day BS, this is the proof that it took longer than 3 days. Here it is right here. So don't get caught at the end of the process for the adjusters to ask you for dry logs. Because it's probably, if I had to guess, this process from start to finish is 2 weeks for a big job. Commercial jobs even longer to the mitigation company to get to this point. Then you got to turn it in. Then they're gonna find it missing. And then you got to go back to the company to get it. Therefore, you're months waiting on this piece of information. Got a question? I'm sorry, I can't see you.
Is there some sort of, condensed version or something that you could give us that we could show the homeowner and the mitigation company that's most often sent out by the carrier anyway, a preferred vendor?
Yes, ma'am.
That does nothing, but they're getting paid.
Yeah, I do. I'm in the process right now of working on like a checklist. And that way it could be given to your policyholder and also to you to know exactly what they need to check. But, leading up to mitigation, making sure that you have all of this in there. And then step 2 is making sure that you have an operational progress report and this, and this. So I should have that done in probably another week or 2. And I'll be more than happy to share it. It'll be on my Facebook. It'll be an email. You're going to get it because it's very, very important. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do it twice.
So then you're going to have to wait for the results to come back from the lab?
24 hours.
Pardon?
24 hours.
They're always 24?
Yes, sir. Sometimes same day, if I can get them there in time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming that a lot of times you don't get there to do the pre-mit air samples because you're not the first guy there.
I'm 9 times out of 10 the first one on site. I'm there before the mitigation company. So let's just say PAs and attorneys, or even policyholders. I work for a lot of mitigation companies as well. So a mitigation company, the real mitigation companies understand the importance of a third party to do their assessments. That's where the key is. So some of my biggest mitigation companies that hire me understand that we split a liability whenever they allow me to do this, and then they work underneath my scope. So therefore, when public adjusters, you go to a storm, and public adjusters are signing up clients left and right.
So are you getting the carrier to approve your scope for the demolition again?
That's not my job. I don't deal with the carriers. That's not my job. Is to document the loss and to prove the damage. Yep. So I pass all this information to the public adjuster, and they handle that. I am a true third party, non-biased. I'm not there to talk policy. I don't even care what their coverages is. I'm there to document the loss, show the facts, and hey, there's been many times, and some of them are in this room, a public adjuster comes to me and tells me there's a loss. I will tell them that that's not a good loss for me. I can't do if you're asking me to find damage and I can't find it, I'm going to be very truthful with you. And I will tell you that I don't believe that this is a good claim. And sometimes they take it and don't use me, and that's perfectly okay. But my job is to make sure that we win it for the policyholder, and I make sure that they have all the evidence needed to get paid properly. That's everything of a third party of my job. Absolutely. And that's why I'm teaching you guys what to look for.
That's why I'm asking, how can you be the mitigation? If you're being hired by a public adjuster and the mitigation contractor was the first guy there.
Yep. I'm not always there. And unfortunately, the mitigation company so the reason why I'm here talking to you guys is because the mitigation companies don't listen. The only way to hold a mitigation company accountable is for accountability. And if he knows that he doesn't do it properly, and there is a possibility that he might not get paid, or might not get paid for all these items, then that's all we can do. I can't be at every loss. Nobody can be at every loss. You're not going to get there till there's a problem, unless you have them in your Rolodex and they call during a storm or whatever the case may be, or we have some time. Hurricanes are different than your normal everyday loss. I don't get called to a lot of everyday losses unless it's a fire. I don't see the busted water pipes when they come home from vacation. I don't see that type of stuff. I see the fires and I see the disasters because we have time. We have 3 or 4 days from the fire report to be released from the fire department. In a disaster, I'm already there. I know that we're going to be balls to the wall with that. And 9 times out of 10, your policyholders aren't going to let your mitigation companies get started right away in a disaster area. So, yes, unfortunately, I wish I could be faster at most of them, but we have to make sure that the mitigation companies are doing it right for the jobs that neither one of us can get there properly fast. So I hope that answered your question. But going back to this, your finished photos, we want to make sure that all the wood studs are dried to match your dry logs, and we want to make sure that all the area is clean and properly cleaned up properly for making sure that the rebuild can get started. So if they're not taking good finished photos, please ask them for finished photos. 9 times out of 10 on your losses, you're going to probably go to your jobs after that's done. You're probably going to have your own photographs. But I like to see the mitigation company have a lot of good finished photographs. Yes?
You work a lot with servpros and service masters and vendors?
No.
Because I've never seen any of this stuff.
Yeah, I do have some, well, let me not say that I don't. I work with certain serve pros that understand the importance of this. And then I have some very large independent mitigation companies that understand the importance of this. What it is, guys, is this. When you have a third-party consultant like myself that does this for mitigation companies, 1, we share the liability. 2, they know it's going to be documented properly because that's my job. I have 0 financial interest in this job. 0. I don't write the exactimates. I don't care what the final number is. I don't care about that. I want to make sure that it's documented properly, we prove the loss, and at the end of the day, my policyholder is safe. That's all I care about. I'm not there to teach the IRCRC standards. I'm not there to teach you how to set up dehumidifiers. I'm not there to tell you how many. I can care less what your process is. Long as we get to the end goal, that's all I care about. Yes, sir.
There's been a situation in the past where the insurance company sent out their preferred vendor, they completed the job, and then they ended up contacting us, actually being down here with the job. And we showed up, the base was still wet, and is this something that we could use a service like you to come in?
I do that a lot to rebuttal. And on my couple next slides down, you're going to see what a preferred vendor did. And then when the attorney hired me, you'll see how preferred vendors really take advantage of our policyholders. And it's very sad.
At least twice a week, I'm behind servpros and
Yep.
service masters and all these vendors.
It's more important to document than ever. When you're going behind a third party, like whenever you're going behind that, you need to document properly because you're going to need to be paid for your service, but you're also going to need to make sure that you are documenting it to do more work or additional work because they're going to rebuttal because their preferred vendors are the holy grail because they're super cheap and they're getting kickbacks, all that good stuff. So you're going to have to document really, really well going behind a preferred vendor, very well. So your accurate and truthful invoice. This is one of my pet peeves and what I really hold people accountable for. I don't play no games when it comes to this. I don't like fluff and I don't like items that wasn't performed. If you want to see a really mean person come out of me, let one come across my desk that you didn't do no work for. And I promise you will not be paid. Accurate and final scope of work. This is the start of what I look for whenever I'm providing a service from a policyholder. An accurate and final scope of work. This is after you're completely done, you've passed the test, you're ready for rebuild. This is what is being charged. This is exactly what should be on the line items. Your accurate and factual evidence of the loss. That's all, everything that we just talked about, all the photographs, all the moisture readings, all the dry logs. This is all the evidence to prove what we're about to charge for. Your invoice, your final invoice that is truthful and accurate. Make sure that whether you use QuickBooks, Xactimate, Symbility, it's not I don't care what you use, but make sure it's truthful because someone will look at that. Make sure it's truthful. I cannot stress that enough. Your reputation and your integrity lies in making sure that your invoice and your documentation is truthful. Don't be that guy. Please do not be that person. So then after you have all these other three, you should get carrier approval, the policyholder's made whole, mitigation company's paid, and the PA attorney's paid. You get your percentage, mitigation company gets paid, policyholder can get started on his rebuild. Everything should be fine. So those are my 4 requirements to make sure that everything after the certificate of completion is issued and all the other 3 important documents are done. This should be the holy grail that needs to be followed from your mitigation company. So getting into the good stuff now, the expert peer reviewing. So this is a claim that I was hired from an attorney after Hurricane Ida loss. It was many, many months after the loss. It's in trial, or trial's been settled, but this was a preferred vendor for a mitigation for a large carrier. And I was hired to go through all the documentation to make sure that this loss and his invoice amount was accurate. And man, what did we find? So on the 9th day, I was hired as an expert witness to look at all the documentations. I received files for that case. So with that being said, after reviewing all of the final revised invoice, the work authorization, the rate sheets, the rate invoices conditions, reconstruction release, the liability, I went through every single piece of information that this mitigation company gave to the carrier and ultimately came out in discovery. And the most important part of this, I say first off, this policyholder had a policy of $390,000 for a 4-apartment building. 4 apartments, it was about 1,100 square feet each, and the roof blew off. So basically, had a lot of water damage in it, $50,000 deductible on a $390,000 policy, on a hurricane deductible. He admitted that he was majorly underinsured, but that does not warrant what happened to him from a preferred vendor. And I don't care about his policy. I don't care about what he was insured for. My job was to make sure that this was accurate. So therefore, what I found as a professional opinion, that there was excessively overcharged during a time of stress, depression, and confusion of the policyholder. And then what you'll see is a list of the conclusion of my findings underneath that. So you notice how I put professional opinion. I don't know this policyholder, never met him, never talked to him, anything, but I can understand from a policyholder standpoint of what he was going through during this loss. He was stressed. He was probably depressed because he's losing revenue. He doesn't have tenants anymore. He lost his building, and he's underinsured. So my professional opinion is that he was definitely in this state of mind. But what I found when I was reviewing these documents was that there was a 7.5 economic surcharge on items such as small tools, scheduling of vehicles, scheduling of equipment, materials. And my professional opinion is that, yes, you should be compensated to an extent for these items. But then he put these items in his line items, but then put a 7.5% economic surcharge on top of them. I feel that was unethical, and it was a cost of doing business. And I put it in my report as such. I thought that was very, very unethical of him to do that. That was one of the very first things that I saw under his general conditions was that. So then the next item that I saw, mind you, that he only has probably about $320,000 to $340,000 for total of this property after the deductibles paid. So there was a large and excessive overtime hourly charge that I found of $46,000 of just overtime charges, and it was completely not approved by the policyholder. The policyholder didn't tell them to work on Saturdays and Sundays and all times of the night to get this property mitigated. Yes, that's what we do during hurricanes, but $46,000 of overtime, $46,000 on a 4-unit apartment complex, probably 8,000 square feet total. And this is just mitigation, guys. This is not rebuild, just demo, treatment, drying, just mitigation. So that was really, really bad. Then I found that they had an asbestos abatement invoice that they paid to a subcontractor. So that right there really, really got my attention. They paid him $34,000 for abatement of 13 square feet of drywall per attached scope. But here's the thing. If you know what you're looking for and you're really reading into everything like I do, there was no attached scope that was based to that abatement. So what did this abatement subcontractor do for $34,000? Okay, here we go. So I basically told them that I needed to provide the lab results, the chain of custody, the sample locations of testing, the material that's tested, and the date of the testing. Never got that. Then I want to see the attached scope that they say that they worked off of, which was never attached. Then I want to explain an explanation to why he was hired as an asbestos abatement to remove drywall, but this mitigation company charged daily 8 to 15 people to demo the drywall. So therefore, he had all of this excessive charges for demo in the interior when we all know that drywall makes up probably 70% of the demo. You probably do some cabinets, some baseboards, some carpet, stuff here and there. But drywall equals the majority of the demolition for mitigation. So therefore, they had an abatement company if the drywall tested hot. Therefore, where's the results? Where's my designer that should have wrote abatement asbestos protocol? So when we went down to the rabbit hole of this one, it really got good. So he opened up a door with this because then I want to see where that asbestos went. Did they have dumpsters to house the asbestos? I called the landfill. The landfill, with the numbers that I've got, they accepted all of those dumpsters that was on his tickets that he gave me because he did it as incurred cost. But that landfill doesn't take asbestos. So now we got raw laws being broke into this type of situation. So they don't take hazardous material at this landfill. So therefore, it's snowballing for this guy. His bills went from $330,000 to where I'm chopping him down. I'm getting to a reasonable mitigation invoice because our policyholder has 3 different quotes before being coaxed into using a preferred vendor. So we know what the mitigation should have been to start this job. Because he went and did exactly what the adjuster told him to do, get quotes from the mitigation. But we have a preferred vendor that will get paid directly and do it fairly and make the whole process easier. So he went that route, but didn't go with the guys that probably would have been honest. So we get to this asbestos abatement, and we start hammering down on them. But then I start seeing that before the arrival of the preferred vendor, that there was, $70,000, $80,000, $60,000 invoices for other mitigation companies that would have done this job, which made it very heartbreaking for the policyholder because he knew what it should have been. So whenever he received this invoice from the mitigation company, he was floored and knew that he needed to get representation on that. So I requested all of the documentation, which we never been provided on that, but and we probably never will. The case won, but you'll see that his invoice is right there. Billable label, $107,000. Associated labor fees, materials, equipment, subcontractor and vendors, $82,000. Cat fee, a 7.5% economic surcharge, $304,000 mitigation invoice for a 4-unit apartment complex that would, and here's the bad part, guys, this would have been paid by the carrier, leaving our policyholder with no money to do rebuild. It's a preferred vendor that almost got away with this if that policyholder would not have hired that attorney. That's very scary. So how many times have this happened? A lot. And this is the accountability that we need to have. And this is why we have the black eye on the mitigation industry. And that's frankly why everybody's jumping into water mitigation. It's because the numbers are so good. And you can make a lot of money. But do it right and do it ethically. This is not ethically. And this is one of the largest mitigation companies in the country that did this for a large insurance carrier. So just imagine how long they're doing this for. This is what I really love to do, is look at files and really get down to the bare bones and hold people accountable. The mitigation companies aren't going to listen. They're set in their ways. They're hard-headed. You can't tell them what to do. Yes, sir.
Big companies, I mean, where they come with 2 line items and they're at $4 million.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not going to listen. So the only way that we can do it is to hold them accountable. Is there any questions? Oh, probably more times than they got caught, I can promise you. Yep. Exactly. Is there any questions, guys? If not, here's that's my information. Anybody in here that knows me knows that I will answer any questions. I talk to everybody on a daily basis. I answer my phone. And if you guys need anything, you're more than welcome to contact me. And thank you guys for coming today. This is one of the best events of the year, and you should be honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. That concludes the first day of the 3rd annual PAFTA Indemnity Conference.